Hello, beautiful. And what I want to know is what's good in your life today? I'm Kia, and this is another very special episode of the Female Veterans Podcast. Before I get started introducing my guest, I would like to give a proper shout out to my sponsor, Grunt. You can check them out at gruntstyle.com. And if you like their apparel, they have men, women's, and children's. If you like it, super cute, I think, then you can use my last name, Baker, and you can get a 10% discount off of your first order. So I'm very proud to have them as a sponsor. And you can check out my Instagram for more details about that at the Female Veterans Podcast on Instagram. So today I have with me someone very special. Forgive me because I am recovering from a cold, so I might sound funny. I have someone so special with me. You may remember her. She runs a foundation that I'm super passionate about. It's called the Giordano Foundation. Barbara Giordano was her sister, and I'm going to let her tell you the backstory a little bit. But this foundation does a lot of amazing work for female veterans, and I am so honored to be connected with them. And I wanted to bring Virginia back because she's always doing amazing things for veterans and recently created a peace garden. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how you can benefit from reaching out to this organization. Welcome back, Virginia.
I'm so happy to be here with you. It's great to share some time with you.
I'm happy to see you too. See you looking beautiful as ever and working hard as usual for female veterans. So tell me, let's catch up. I did a couple of workshops for you during the pandemic. So I know that you were still going strong and you guys really launched into action helping female veterans during the pandemic. But how was that for you?
Well, we always trying to look for the positive in things. And there weren't a lot of positives in the COVID, obviously. But for us, what it did enable us to do is to broaden our reach in terms of finding women veterans who needed our services. So we went from an organization that was really focused on our tri-state area. We're housed in New York. And so most of the things that we did were, of course, in person. And they were involving women veterans from New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York primarily. What COVID allowed us to do was, as they say, kind of swivel into another way of approaching this, which was Zoom. And so what enabled us to do was to reach out to people like all over the world now, because we actually have women veterans from other countries, from other countries. I'm so excited by this because that was always the dream. And because that there are over 3 million women veterans in, the United States and the world. And so we wanted to make sure that we were connecting with them. And actually Zoom allowed us to do that. So we have women now who are joining us in different activities that we sponsor, from Alaska and Hawaii and Canada and Puerto Rico. And so we're very pleased about that. So that was a positive for us, that in fact, we were able to broaden our reach and to connect with women veterans in other places that might not have had these connections before.
It's amazing. I love that you are connecting with women veterans all over the world. That is actually the vision for this podcast as well, to start in the US and then to spread out and find out the stories of women everywhere. And I'm really excited that you're able to help so many women. Tell me a little bit more of the backstory of the foundation. I know we talked about this on your first episode last year. I think it was season 4. So many now. But for those who are just listening or new to the show, will you give the backstory of how you began this mission work?
Well, actually, this 2021 was our anniversary year. It was 25 years ago that we founded the foundation. And it was, as you mentioned, named after my sister, who was a nurse and a hospital administrator and an author and all sorts of fabulous things. And we had talked about actually founding an organization for women, to empower women in general. And we did that for the first 20 years. And despite the fact that she had passed away, I knew what she wanted, and we kind of continued that vision. But 5 years ago, the board, decided that, and by the way, none of us were women veterans, but we thought that we would really take a real close look at what we had accomplished over those first 20 years and see if there was something, if some group of women that we could really focus on, because we had done a lot of work and we had certainly a good reputation, and we wanted to see what else we could do, how we could really impact the world, really. And that sounds very grand, but that was exactly what we wanted to do. So we were all kind of given the task to go out and find a group of women who needed us. And interestingly enough, as I said, none of us were women veterans, but we kept coming back to this. And what we found was that there's so many organizations for veterans, but not a whole lot that was specifically for women veterans. And certainly none that were totally run by only women. So that was how we started. We decided we were going to kind of pivot, as they said, once again, that pivoting. And we started to look at women veterans and what they needed. So we spent the first 2 years really talking to women veterans and finding out what they weren't getting other places, because what we didn't want to do is replicate what everybody else is doing. Our focus is on wellness, which has always been the focus of the foundation, even before our work with women veterans. And so we wanted to provide those things that they wouldn't get someplace else. So we had to ask them, what are you getting other places that you like, or what are you not getting, or what don't you like about what you're getting? And so it was it's a period of discovery for us. And so we took it from there. So we started really, I would say, 3 years ago, really providing programs and services. And so our mission is pretty clear, and it's very specific, that we provide wellness opportunities for women veterans that they can't easily get someplace else, so that it helps them to empower them and to provide a life for them that they really want.
That's amazing. I know that through your organization, I've gotten to reach out to a lot of female veterans and be able to potentially impact their life by doing some talks and workshops. And I always find the environment so amazing and so warm and incredible. And I always want to encourage female veterans to go and check out what you're offering. I had such a great time at the workshop that you put on, where it was like a whole day of events. And then there was chef was there, and there were speakers, and it was so positive and so motivational and so much happening that I had such an amazing time even being a part of it, but also attending it as a female veteran. And I just can't say enough how great your programs are. So would you share some of the programs that you put on?
Would definitely be happy to do that. But I'd like to add one other thing. And that is that part of the mission of the foundation also is to educate the public about women veterans. And, you're kind of the unsung, unrecognized heroes. And we want to make sure that people know that you're out there and that you've always been out there for all of us. So going back to the programs, what we try to do is to recognize how important you are to us and to really give you everything that you need to, as I said, to empower you. So, over the course of this last year and a half with COVID, as I said, we really looked to see what we could do online that was effective and impactful. And so we were actually able to do, I would say, around 60 different programs over that year and a half. We were busy.
Yes.
But it was really interesting. And what we kept hearing from the women over and over again was how important it was that they felt heard, that they felt connected. I mean, we did a program called Conversation and Cookies, and it wasn't about any kind of a weighty topic or anything like that. It was just getting together. So people really literally were in sorts of all kinds of, shall we say, outfits, pajamas, that kind of thing. But we got together and just had a conversation the way you would with a group of friends. But none of these women knew each other originally. So they were from all over the country and they were chatting, and then they realized how much they all had in common. And, we covered a variety of topics. And at the end, the Girl Scouts that the foundation is involved with also. What they did was they provided boxes of cookies. And so each one of the women who participated in Conversation and Cookies, I sent them a box of Girl Scout cookies of their choice. So it was just fun. And, sometimes that's something else we need to do, and that we maybe during this last couple of years, it's been a little bit difficult, but we wanted to provide opportunities not only for learning, and showing support, but also just having a good time and being able to laugh sometimes and just being silly and being, and relax. So we did a lot of different programs. But two of the things that we did do that I want to highlight that we are going to, and by the way, we're putting together our program for 2022 now. And so if anybody has any ideas, please send it to us. But what we had done was to put together a program on equine therapy, but we did it virtually. So because a lot of people said you couldn't really do that because, you have to be in person and you have to feel the horse and all that. But we actually were able to put together a very impactful and important, I think, equine therapy program. And we will do that again this year too. And it was, in fact, just 6 sessions, but the horses were really the teachers. And because of Zoom, obviously, you can see the horses and the teacher can interact with the horse, and the participants in the group can ask questions. And it really felt as if we were really there because the horses are incredible teachers. So that was something that we've done and something that we will continue to do. We are also in the process of putting together a program, which I have not seen anyplace else actually, for women veterans. And it is called actually light therapy and sound therapy. And that is solely, and all the women have to do, and I love this part of it because I have to admit, myself personally into a lot of exercise, so to speak. So I like things that are kind of calm. And so I love yoga, and we provide chair yoga and things like that. And that's great. But the women have to do nothing else but be able to be silent and quiet for a half an hour. And then the practitioner actually uses very special Tibetan bowls that have different sounds. And they are healing modalities that are ancient. So it's not that we're looking at something that's just, unproven, but ancient modalities for healing. And so we are bringing that to the women veterans also. Because again, the women don't really have to do anything except be present in it. And then we also introduced a lot of women to EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which you hear people call it tapping. And I love that modality for healing. And again, very old and very proven. But what I like about that in particular is that the women don't need somebody else to be with them in order to do it. They can do it with themselves at any time, any place, whenever they feel stressed. It works particularly well for people who suffer from PTSD or some kind of trauma. So we're looking for things. We're looking to engage women in their own healing through proven modalities, but not necessarily things that they can get someplace else. We want to enrich their lives in ways that they might not have known about before or thought about before. But we want to provide a safe kind of environment that allows them to do that and embrace their own well-being.
That is amazing. And I love tapping. I believe I got to witness that at one of your workshops as well. Tapping is amazing. Sound therapy is really incredible. And I love that these programs are really inclusive for disabled vets, because I myself am a disabled veteran, and there are a lot of female veterans who have more severe disabilities than I have. And this allows them to participate in the healing and without having to do much. And I love that it's really inclusive that way.
That is the goal. We don't want anybody to feel that they can't participate or that they're not welcome. That would be that goes against everything that the mission of the foundation is about. One of the things that I do want to mention, though, in this year, we're going to very much focus on something that has always been there, but sort of on the back burner. And that is that, and you mentioned this actually briefly when you said something about the day that we put together. It was a virtual retreat. Mm-hmm. But what we want to do is we want to have an actual physical retreat center for a wellness center for women veterans, an actual facility that women from all over the world can come to and participate in wellness programs. And we are looking for a site. We were actually offered some property in another state, but that probably won't work for us. But we are actively going to pursue this year to find a site, to find a location for this, because I can't imagine something more powerful than putting together a place only for women veterans to come together and to grow and to learn and feel supported and nurtured and empowered.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know that retreats before the pandemic were really taking off and really impactful and really powerful for a lot of people. People were beginning to really see the value in them and doing them more and more. And they're even still happening a little bit now, but I don't think it is as much as it was then. And just the idea of having a space that is safe for female veterans to go and that camaraderie that we so miss and have it there, as well as a whole day of wellness activities. Will it be an overnight type of retreat, or will it be sort of a day type of retreat?
We're looking at when we get the facility, it can be overnight. And actually, in my head, I'm thinking that, we could have programs, women could come for a week and really immerse themselves in all the different programs and modalities of healing that we would offer. So yes, it can be one day, it can be overnight, or it can be longer than that. We have a real clear vision about how we want this to unfold. And so maybe at another time we can talk about that. But I think that there's such a need for this. And I don't see any place specifically in the United States that is only for women veterans that is doing something like this, an actual physical location that is allowing that kind of healing to take place only for women veterans. So that's the goal. That's really what we're looking to do. So we're going to actively work on that this year.
That is incredible news. I'm so excited to hear it because it's needed. And I mean, in most states, female veterans don't have places like for homeless female veterans. They don't have, specific shelters. It's usually private organizations like yours that create these. Everyone knows my dream for the foundation of Artemisia that is my vision, and why I actually started this podcast was to help female veterans get off of the streets and have a place for them like that. Those don't exist, let alone an amazing place for women to go to heal once they are on their feet, right? It's incredible. It's really incredible.
So important. It goes back to what we were talking about before in terms of educating the public about women veterans. Mm-hmm. You could speak to 100 people and ask them if they know a woman veteran, and the 100 will say no, they don't. And yet here you all are, millions of you, millions.
Absolutely. Why I could be on a soapbox about that all day. It's the other reason I started this podcast. It's all tied together because when I started, there was only one other show that was dedicated only for female, but it was active duty. Shout out to Amanda Huffman, as always, of Women of the Military podcast.
Yes, great things.
She's an incredible girl. And she is my predecessor and friend. I just love her. But her show is for women, active duty, and veterans. Mine was just for veterans, just for us to change the prevailing perception that veterans are men. And I cannot tell you how much it still happens to me today, where it is assumed that my ex-husband is the veteran and I am not. And I know so many of you listening have experienced that and feel the same way, that same frustration. So I love that that's part of your mission, that we're so aligned in that way. And it reminds me of the little episode that I did, this little rant. I did a little solo episode right around Christmas time, just around New Year's. And I was talking about thank you for your service. Right. And it is amazing because when I got out of the military, as most know, I served in the mid 90s to 2000 and a few years in reserve after 2000. And when I first got out of active duty, no one said thank you for your service. No one gave a crap. I served anything. I had to take it off my resume when I lived in Arizona in order to even get a job. It was easier to explain a 5-year absence of work history than it was to have being in the military, serving in the Navy on my resume, which is a horrifying thought to me. And so 9/11 happened, as we all know, and now thank you for your service, right? But thank you for your service is wonderful, and that's great, and it's appreciated. But what else? Are we supporting veteran businesses? Are we doing what you're doing, creating a foundation to help change this perception that veterans are male? Like, what are we doing? So I really align with your mission and I love everything you're doing. I'm so glad to have you here sharing it with the new listeners and the old listeners and spreading your message.
I need to say something else about women veterans in terms of speaking up for themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just amazing to me when I speak at different groups and the men, they wear their, they wear the hat and the cap with their, the whatever branch of service they're in. They wear a jacket. They will immediately tell you that they were in whichever branch and where they served, et cetera, et cetera. The women almost never admit that they served. And this is what I find in a lot of the conversations I have with women, is that they'll say, well, I'm not sure really if I'm a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
They're confused. And some of that comes from, how veterans are identified in the military. And so, but if you've served one day, you're still, and you're a veteran. And that's something that a lot of women are having difficulty with also, is that defining themselves as a veteran. Because I hear this also a lot. Well, I didn't go to a combat zone. Well, you know full well, you only go where you're told to go. It's not that you have a choice and that you choose not to go to a combat zone. So, but that doesn't make you more of a veteran if you went there or you didn't go there. So, again, it goes back to not only educating the public. I know I'm on that's important to us, but also empowering the women veterans to speak up for themselves also and to understand their value and their worth and what they contributed to us, whether or not they went to a war zone.
That is so very true. I can't tell you how much I hear that myself when I do interviews. Imagine a girl who had a nervous breakdown because she was being sexually harassed and she had a few years enlistment, but they put her out of the military early. And she served only 1 year, right? She doesn't feel like a veteran. She doesn't tell anyone she's a veteran, but you are a veteran, even if you served 1 year, right? It's your right. You did the job. And then I have so many other female veterans who tell me through these interviews that after they got out of the military, because if they didn't have a good experience, because not everybody does, they disassociate from the military. They become anti-establishment. I know I spent some time anti-establishment, didn't vote, didn't anything for a long time, and just was very distrustful of the government. And so there's a lot of females who come out of the military feeling like that as well. So they'll deny being in the military. They'll disown it completely. And they don't take any pride in it whatsoever. And so that's also sad because I understand that there were difficulties and horrific things sometimes, quite frankly, that happened. But you swore that oath. You swore that oath. and you have rights and you have things that you are eligible for, benefits, and they just don't use them. They don't want anything. They don't trust. And it's because of the trauma. And that brings me to another thing that I love about your organization is because I know full well, I've met a lot of people through your organization with the workshops I've done, and they've experienced trauma. And your organization really helps them. I can't share enough about the positive impact and the work that you do and that your team does for all of us as female veterans. Beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate your saying that. And I do want to say that everything that we offer the women, and we've heard a lot of the same things that you were just talking about, which is that they were so traumatized, some of these women in the military. And I want to say not everybody was traumatized in the military.
No.
But there is a significant number. And, we've heard from a lot of these women saying they don't even mention that they were ever in the military because it was such a horrible experience and the way they were treated as a result of what their experience was. So I totally understand what it is that you're talking about there. This is what we're hearing also. It's just, again, it goes back to education. My background is in education, and I guess I always go back to that. But the fact is that it is about educating the public, but it's also about educating the women themselves, that they are valuable, that they are important, that they sacrificed, even if it was for 1 year or 1 week or 1 day, that they made that commitment, that they were willing to make that commitment, and not knowing where it was going to really take them, but that the country needed them. And so I think that, your podcasts are really important also because it does educate, it does bring awareness. And that's really what we have to do. And we have to work together because we are definitely stronger when we work together than when we work by ourselves.
Absolutely. It's definitely very, very necessary. And of course, like you said, I hear all the stories. So I hear the good ones, the exceptional ones, and I go, oh my God, where were you stationed? I wish I was stationed there. It makes me want to re-sign up all over again, and then I hear, really tragic stories. But the thing is exactly what you said. We served, we did the job, we put our hand up to take that oath. And we were definitely willing to serve. And I find that even coming out, that desire to serve is still so strong amongst veterans, especially female veterans, and that even those that experience trauma, they can find healing through service to other veterans. And so I love that I get to come and help and participate with some of your workshops, because for me, and I got to tell you, I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this to you, but it's as healing for me as it is for the women who attend. So it's definitely a two-way street, because it's very fulfilling, that need to contribute and to serve and to help my sisters, right? And I always get something back from them after that. So thank you so much for that. It means the world to me.
I appreciate that you're saying that. And I've heard that from a number of other people who have participated in our programs, that they get a lot out of it also, and that they're so grateful for the opportunity to help their fellow service person. But also that, it's healing for everybody, and I think it's also, you're a role model. Maybe you don't see it that way necessarily because you're just busy doing all these great things, but you are a role model for so many women veterans who come into contact with you, because despite the fact of having some difficulty, you emerged victorious and empowered, and besides being beautiful and all of those good things. So, and I think that that's an important lesson also, is that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There are solutions to things, and that you don't need to get bogged down in what was bad. And because there are ways out, and there are people who are willing to help and to kind of show you the way, or to be supportive in that way. So again, going back to the foundation, the goal of the foundation is to provide those kinds of services and opportunities that empower women to do that, and to kind of get out of their own way in a way, and to find that road that leads to their personal well-being and happiness and self-actualization.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, actually. And it's one of my favorite podcasters, Paul Rykoff. He has this show called Independent Americans, I think. He always says, look for the helpers. And you're definitely a helper. And when we are at rock bottom, some people listening to this right now might be. You have to look for the light bringers, the helpers that will offer you a hand up, and then you have to take it. You have to recognize that you are valuable and you deserve it, and you're worthy and you're enough. Just because you were born, you were enough to deserve better, to deserve the best. And so you look for those people who are willing to help you. And for years before this podcast, I didn't even realize it. I was sort of doing a grassroots campaign, if you will, of helping veterans, because I'd find them on social media back when MySpace was a thing. I met a lot of veterans on there. And some of them would be in really dark places. And I'd be like, bro, or sis, or whatever, listen, how are you? Like, it's, let's talk. And sometimes just talking to another veteran, really helps them. And I would be able to tell them this is how you get your benefits. This is how you get your education benefit. And those are the things that I was doing for years from the early 2000s. Right. And I didn't realize that was such a powerful thing to do, because it had been done to me. So I was very low at one point. I was 2 weeks away from being homeless myself. I didn't know how to get my benefits, how to use my benefits, and someone helped me. And so then I turned around to help other people. So I just want to say, if anyone's at a low point right now, look for those people that are willing to help. Look for those people that will offer a hand up. Go into a program like the Giordano Foundation and see what they're offering. All those wellness programs, they change lives. You just have to be open. You just have to try. And if you're in a really dark place, like I always say on all my episodes, especially my alternative medicine episodes and everything like that, what do you have to lose? If you're at your end, try one more thing. And that thing might be the thing that changes your life for the better forever.
I think, what's really important also is that, and as women, I think we tend to do this a lot, is we undervalue ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not you're in the military or not, we just are. And I think that this is really an important message. Just what you said, I think is incredibly powerful and important, is that we are enough. We are good enough. We are perfect with our imperfections. And so we have to accept that and value us, because, all the value can't come from outside of us. We have to see our own value, regardless of what other people say to us. We have to know that we're important. And I hope that through the work of the foundation and through, all the work that you do and other people do, that as women, we begin to really see that we don't really need other people to tell us you're good enough. That, and again, that goes back to the importance of the work of the foundation, which is that empowerment, that, you don't necessarily have to, have 8,000 million Facebook followers, and you have to be Kim Kardashian or somebody like that, and everybody know you. But you are important in whatever role you are in, or wherever place you are at this particular moment in time. And I think that that's where the value really lies, in the work that you do and the work that the foundation does, which is making sure that women understand that we are important.
So well said again. And I love that your foundation really places this priority on treating female veterans so well and helping them heal, because through that healing process, oftentimes they discover that. So it's really beautiful work. I have just a couple more questions for you. And I'd like to know what kind of programs, other than the retreat, you have coming up.
Well, as I said, we have the equine therapy and we have the virtual equine therapy, the sound therapy, which will be coming, and we're resuming our cookies and conversation, and some other things that we're working on, but those things are not concrete yet. So I don't necessarily want to speak about them because I don't want to say we're going to do something if we don't follow through on that for whatever reason. But I just want to say something that we have just accomplished that I'm very proud of, and that is the Peace Garden for women veterans.
Yes.
We wanted something, and again, it goes back to this whole conversation that we've just had, which is about, recognizing the value and the importance of women, and particularly women veterans. And so we wanted something concrete, and I mean that literally as well as figuratively, that people could look at and be reminded constantly that women serve and continue to serve and have always served from the American Revolution right to the present time. And so when we began to do some research, we realized that we wanted it to be a beautiful space, but also in a space of comfort and a space of beauty, all the things that women are. We are nurturers. We're beautiful souls. We take care of others. We want to establish places of peace and harmony. That's really what women do. And so we decided that we wanted to establish a garden, a peace garden. And so when we began to do our research, we couldn't find any other place that was doing that, or any other place in the United States that had a peace garden that was actually dedicated solely to women veterans. Now, there are gardens, obviously, for veterans. And so we are not the first garden for veterans. But as far as we can tell, we think we are the first public peace garden for women veterans in the United States. Now, there might be others that we couldn't find any place, but we did our research. So we actually went to, in New York, since that is where we are located, and went to a town that we're in, and we spoke to them about maybe giving us some property for the Peace Garden. And I have to say that they absolutely embraced this.
Wow.
And thought it was a great idea, because they had not heard of anything like this before either. And so in a few short months, one of the things about the foundation that I think your listeners might not know, but certainly you do, is that once we put our mind to something, we'll get it done.
Yes.
And so the fact is that after a few short months, we actually had this very beautiful garden that is dedicated. It was dedicated on November 13th, actually, just a couple of months ago, to women veterans. And it is beautiful. And it continues to be beautiful. And the other day when I was there were 3 generations of women sitting on the bench overlooking the garden. And it was a grandmother, a mother, and a little girl. Aww. And the grandmother was explaining to the little girl what all the plants were, because each plant that is in the garden has a meaning that is specific to veterans. So it might be loyalty or bravery or patriotism. And the other thing is, so that the garden has meaning. But the other thing about the garden was that in every season, it is always green. It never looks like it has died, or that it is always in bloom in some way. Like women, every season is important. And even when you don't see a lot of activity, there's a lot going on below the surface. And so that's what we wanted the garden to be. So it is a very special place. And we're hoping actually other places in the United States will follow suit and establish gardens also to honor women veterans.
Well, I love the idea. I think it's amazing. I want to visit it. So I'm so glad we talked about it. Tell me, where exactly is it if I wanted to go and spend some time there?
Well, it's in the town of Greenburgh, New York, which is in Westchester County. The location is fabulous because it is kind of near all parkways and highways and all of that. So it was a good location as far as getting to it. But it is actually part of the Greenburgh Library complex. It's a beautiful library. I love libraries. And
Me
so
too.
that was particularly good because and they have a lot of acreage there. And when I spoke to the town supervisor for Greenburgh, he actually was the person who mentioned that might be a good location because we wanted the library to be someplace where everybody could see not the library, but the garden, for everybody to see it and actually enjoy it. And so this turned out to be a perfect place for it. And so walking into the library, you have to see the garden. And so you see people stopping and reading the sign and taking in the beauty of the garden. So that was important to us. So it is in Greenburgh, New York. And it is, as I said, a great location as far as easy to get to. And it is in a public space. So it doesn't mean that the library has to be open or anything like that. It is right there. The other thing that makes it exciting to be by the library is that we want the library to be able to have workshops that are specifically for women veterans or specifically run by women veterans so that the residents, not only of the town, but the area around it will be able to put a face on women veterans and to be able to talk to them and hear their experiences and learn from them. So it's kind of multifaceted. It's about the garden, but it's also about it. Here's this word again, education.
Right. Oh, man, I love a library, and I think that's a beautiful location. I cannot wait until I can really feel safe to travel again. I'm starting to feel that need to stick close to home with everything going on these days. But I am determined to make my way out there and come and see that garden.
Well, that would be great. And we would love for you to do that. And actually, one of the women veterans who actually participated in the dedication, an incredible woman, Colonel Mary Westmoreland, she actually took her group of women veterans who she meets with there to see the garden. So they had their last meeting there at the garden. And that was very exciting for them to actually see something that honored them, but also to be able to enjoy it and to use it the way we want it to be used, which is as a place for getting together and kind of appreciating nature, but also appreciating each other.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure that will happen more and more and more. So I'm really glad that we got a chance to talk about that. I know there was something else you were working on with your mission of connecting with women all around the country and now all around the world. And that was to sort of build up a database of female veterans that you could reach out to in order to help support and get wellness services to them and things of that nature. And so where can we go to sign up for that?
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I guess it goes back to what we were talking about is that a lot of times women don't take care of themselves. And so we've put themselves on the back burner kind of. So what would happen is that if they could go to, and they can go to our certainly our website, which is giordanofoundation.org, or you can just look up Barbara Giordano Foundation, but you can also email the foundation at giordanofoundation@gmail.com. And you can reach out also by phone, which is 914-686-8002. So we are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram, as well as I said, our website, which would probably be the easiest way to get in touch with us because there's a place there that you can just click on and send us a note, or as I said, you can call, and I'd be happy to talk to you. But we would love to again broaden our reach. We want millions of you out there, and so we want to service you and provide for you what you need, and we're here for you, and that's really the message. And of course, I want to say also that everything we provide is always free to women veterans.
As it should be.
As it should be. That's right.
So thank you so much for being a guest today. I have one last question, and I ask it to typically all of my guests. And so my question is, what advice would you give, although you've dropped some nuggets during this whole interview, but what advice would you give to female veterans to help them on their journey?
The important thing is just to be open to opportunity, and and to accept help when you need it, and to give help when you can.
A very beautiful message. I agree with that advice, especially about taking opportunities, because sometimes we let fear, uncertainty, and doubt stop us from taking opportunities that could potentially change our lives for the better. So in 2022, let's not do that anymore. Let's take those opportunities and create the lives of our dreams that we deserve. So,
they say if you can envision it, it can happen. And I'm a firm believer in that. If you think it, it can happen. So let's have good thoughts, and let's help each other to achieve those.
I agree. And with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Virginia, for being my guest. It is always a pleasure to spend any time with you. And I know that all of your visions for the foundation and all the work you have for this year and the years to come is going to be spectacular and make such a difference in so many lives. So thank you for your work.
My honor to spend time with you and for all the wonderful things that you do. You're an incredible, incredible person.
Oh, thank you so much. And to every one of you, my loves, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me and staying on this journey with me. Please like and share and rate the podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to it. Follow us on Spotify. I am on Pandora. I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm everywhere these days. So don't forget to check me out there. All the information that Virginia provided about how to contact her organization will be, of course, in the description box. That is where you read what the episode is about. And if you scroll down, you'll see all of that. You will also see the website for Grunt Style, my sponsor. Shout out to them. And you, again, can get 10% off if you use code Baker on their really cute stuff. And I'm going to post some on my Instagram coming up here shortly, if you haven't seen it already. So thank you for listening. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.